Welcome everybody, this is Mr. Storm, and this is part 3 of our Gravity game tutorial. In the last couple videos I showed you what the final game looks like. I showed you the user interface, how to set that up, which is this guy right here. And in this video we're going to build our first level, and we're going to start going over some of the things we need to do in order to make the game playable. So I'm going to go ahead and click on level 1 here to open up this new scene. And I need to zoom into my camera. Zoom, 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 zoom. So we have this empty scene here, which has nothing in it. So we need to load some artwork, obviously. So I'm going to go into my sprites folder, and I'm going to start importing some assets, just like we've done before. I'm actually going to go to my desktop, and I have my Gravity resources here. I'm going to grab all of my things. Oh, come on. Something. Oh, weird. Oh, I said import new. Actually, you know what? I'm going to do it an easier way. I'm going to show you guys a different way of loading in assets. There are a couple of ways. Obviously, one, we can just find the folder, grab all of our stuff, and just drop it right in. Just drag and drop. Or we can go into the game's assets folder here, and we can just put it right into the folder itself. You know, again, because this is obviously a this is my game project. This is where all my files are, and I can just drop them right in there, and then boom, they pop in. So those are the art assets I need for the game. Okay, so we have a couple of levels here. We have, let me open this up a little bit more. We have level 1, which is very, very simple. Level 2, which is a little more difficult. And then level 3, which is even more difficult. This is level 1, so I'm going to drop that in. Actually, nope. I need to change some import settings. Okay, so over here, let's see. My pixels per unit for this game is actually 16, because the sprites that we're going to use were built on 16 by 16. So the pixels per unit is 16, so that my units all actually stack up properly. Let's see, we'll turn off the filter and we'll hit apply, and then I'm going to drag this in, and it's going to, I'll kind of roughly put it kind of where it should go. All right, let's make sure my main camera is zeroed out, and it is. And then, so this level, I can just kind of put it where I want. Then I'm going to scale my main camera up so that it covers the, let's try 10, maybe 8, close. Let's try 7, okay. No, I want it a little bit, I want it big enough to fit the entire game in it. So let's do 10, I guess. All right. Yeah, 10 works. Okay. So now my whole level is inside of there, and this level is just going to be that. It's just going to be this straight hallway. I want to set the background color of my camera to be black. And then, alrighty. Now the next thing I want to do is with this level, I actually want to add a box collider, or I want to add a collider to it, but I don't want a box collider because the box collider is just going to go around the outside, and that's not going to help me. I don't need it there. So we're going to actually add what's called a polygon collider. The polygon collider is going to try to just fill itself in wherever it thinks it needs to go, but we're going to have to help it out a little bit. So notice that it's tried to fill in exactly what it thinks. It tries to find its own edges, but it's not exactly precise. Oop, it's not exactly precise here. So what we're going to do is we're going to click Edit Collider, and we'll zoom back in. And notice that as I'm hovering over the collider, it gives me this little green pick tool thing. And I can just click and drag to kind of match the collider appropriately with the level. So, and I'm only concerned about this inside edge because this is the area where our player is going to be running around in. Okay, perfect. Collider's good to go. So now we have a level with a collider on the inside. Beautiful. Okay. All right, next thing I want to do is I want to bring in a checkpoint object. I want to bring in this checkpoint. Oh, I need to set our 16 pixels per square or per unit, and I need to set my point filter. Apply. Bring that guy in, plop him right down in the first of the level. And then I have my player, which we're going to have to do some animations. We'll just do some very quick animations. So I need to set this up for multiple, and we can do 16 pixels per unit, and we're going to set it up for point. We'll hit apply there. Go into our sprite editor, and this is my little guy. Let's do an automatic splice on him because it looks like, yeah, it looks like it got it pretty well. Do an automatic slice, 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 hit apply. And when we go back, we can open it up and see that we have a bunch of different guys here. Alrighty, let's grab these first two sprites. These are going to be my idle left. Yep, this is going to be my idle left. We're going to call this idle left. And we'll put that in our animation folder. Okay. And then the next two guys, these are going to be, or no, that was idle right. Dang it. Let's delete those really quick. Just so we don't, just so that the, nothing's messed up later. Sorry guys, I can't believe I just got my left and right mixed up. That is embarrassing, but I'm keeping it in because you know what? Nobody's perfect. Alrighty, let's delete him too. So this guy is my idle right because he's looking to the right. And we'll put it in our animation folder. Idle right. And this guy is idle left. And we will call it idle left. And we will put that in the animation folder as well. And then 4 and 5 are going to be the run right. So let's go back to assets, animation, run right. And the last two, 6 and 7, are going to be run left. Okay. Animation, run left. Alrighty, now let's clean this up very quickly. We don't need that many main characters, so we can get rid of those guys. Let's go to our animation folder, and let's get rid of these 3 player controllers, because we only need the first one. Get rid of those. Yep. Okay, so now when we open up our player controller here, we have our idle right as our default, and we need to bring in the others. So I'm going to bring in my idle left, my run left, and my run right. Okay. Perfect. Perfection, perfectamundo. Alrighty. So, actually, I'm going to go ahead and set this up like this. Let's see. How do I want to visualize this? Let's set up... Yeah, let's do it like this. Okay, so make it like a box. All right. This is going to be somewhat of a complicated... animation controller, but it's not going to be too bad. Let's go ahead and start with idle right. When we go from idle right to run right, let's think about the parameters we need first, actually. Actually, we're only going to need one parameter. That's pretty nice. We only need one parameter here. Actually, now that I think about it, you guys haven't even played around with this system yet at all. You guys have only done a little bit of animation. Okay, great. Let me step back a little bit. All right. This right here is our animator controller. The animator controller is going to control all of the animations for a specific character, right? This idle right is our animation that is going to be played by default whenever this character pops into the screen, right? Probably should be idle left, but who cares? Doesn't really matter. This idle right animation is the default animation for our character whenever they come into the screen. Idle left, run right. These are all the animations that we created by grabbing these sprites and popping them into the game menu, the game world, right? Now what we want to do is we want to actually allow ourselves to transition from idle right to run right, or from idle right to run left, or from idle right to idle left. We want to be able to make those transitions. Actually, we don't even need to transition from idle right to idle left because who cares? There's no point in making that transition. So we need to figure out what is going to cause us to go from this animation to that animation. And it's actually kind of easy when you think about it. Whenever we're standing there to the right and we want to run to the right, what's going to cause that transition is us pressing the right arrow key, right? The thing that makes us move to the right. Essentially, what we need to do is check to see whether or not our direction is a specific number. That's all we're doing. So what we can do is we can create a parameter. The parameter is what sets the limits for when animation sets are triggered. So over here in the parameters, I'm going to hit the plus and create a new integer. So a new integer parameter, and I'm going to call it dir(x) or direction x. And that direction x is what we're going to base all of these parameters or all these transitions on. Okay. So now idle right, I want to make a transition from idle right to run right. So I'm going to right click and go make transition. And it gives me this cool little arrow tool thing. And if I go down to run right and I click there, it'll make that transition solid. So now I have a transition from idle right to run right. But we don't know what that transition is, right? We need to define it. So if I click on this little arrow, it'll bring it up here. And it basically has idle right goes to run right. That's what we want. And I don't want an exit time, meaning this isn't an animation that has to continue or that has to complete before we can transition. The animation itself can be interrupted. And then I have conditions here. I want to set my conditions so that direction x, so whenever direction x is greater than 0, we're going to run to the right. Okay, does that make sense? So whenever direction x is greater than 0, we're going to go from idle right. If we're in the idle right stage, when direction x is greater than 0, we're going to start running right. Okay, that's pretty easy. That's that transition. Now we need to have a transition back to idle right, and it's essentially going to be the opposite. Let's make sure we turn off has exit time first, because we do not want there to be a little bit of a pause in our transition. And here, just whenever direction x equals 0, if we're running right, whenever direction x equals 0, we're going to go back to idling right. Okay. Now, we can also set a transition between idle right and run left. Because think about it. If I'm facing to the right, but I hold the left run key, then I need to be able to just quickly start running left instead of having to go through a whole animation transition, blah, blah, blah. I need to go straight from looking to the right to running to the left. So that transition is going to happen whenever the direct x, let's turn off has exit time, whenever the direction x is less than 0. We're going to go from standing idle to running. All right. Now, and there doesn't have to be a transition back to that, because whenever we're done running left, we're just going to keep facing left when we're done. So that doesn't need a return transition. Alrighty. So let's kind of do the same over here with idle left. Let's make a transition down to run left, and has exit time, turn that off. And whenever direction x is less than 0, and then run left, we'll make a transition back up to idle left, turn off the has exit time whenever direction x equals 0. Okay, and also idle left, we want to make a transition from idle left to run right, and that's going to be whenever direction x is greater than 0. Okay, and what else? Oh, you know what? To make it smoother, we might actually add some transitions between run right and run left. So if we're running left and we immediately go, hit the right run key, let's go ahead and create a transition between those two. Boom, and it's going to be exactly what you're thinking, direction X greater than 0 to run right, and make another transition, direction X less than 0. All right, cool. So I know this might look a little bit complicated. It might be a little confusing, and that's okay. This is the first time we've played around with this. But if you start thinking about it, I mean, if you think about it logically, it actually kind of makes sense, right? Basically, whatever state we are in, we want to be able to transition to these other states whenever this direction X variable changes in some way. Now, just setting up our animator doesn't mean we can actually have some kind of functionality yet. We want to make sure that, actually, let me show you how this works. So we have our direction X variable here. Let's go ahead and play the game. So now we have, he is facing to the left. Let's change our direction X to 1. So now he's running, okay? And let's go back to 0. And let's make it -1. So we can run to the left. And then let's go back to 0. And perfect. So now this is exactly what we want, right? Basically, just by changing this direction X integer, we can change the behavior of our character. All right. So that's the animator. That should be really all we need right there. Okay. Yeah. Yep. All right. Perfect. Cool. All right. And let's see. What else? Well, let's add some components to our main character, our player here. First of all, let's rename him player. And let's rename the checkpoint. Let's give it a uppercase name. Checkpoint. And let's add in some spikes. Actually, let's deal with this checkpoint first. So this checkpoint looks pretty good, but it needs a box collider. And here's the reason why. I need to be able to walk into this. I need my character to be able to walk into this checkpoint and trigger it somehow, right? Because this checkpoint is going to save our actual position. It's going to save our position and allow us to return to this position whenever we die. So I just added the box collider. Now notice it's a little bit big, so I'm just going to edit the collider and bring it down because it doesn't need to be that big. It just needs to be as big as the object. Alrighty. Now it has a collider. Oh, it now has a box collider, but I don't want that box collider to handle any kind. I don't want it to like not allow me to run into it, right? So instead of leaving it normal, I'm actually going to hit this button called is trigger. Triggers are basically, they're kind of like passable fields that trigger certain things in the code. So I'm going to turn on is trigger, and it doesn't need a rigid body because it's not going to move. It's just going to stay there. All right, so that guy's good. Now we're going to use a lot of these. So let's just go ahead and create a prefab out of it. Let's just drag this down and drop them right into here. And that's our checkpoint prefab. So now we can reuse as many checkpoints as we want. We can just pull out as many of them as we want and drop them into the game. All right, now let's go to our player. Let's add a 2D box collider around our player. And that collider looks pretty good. It looks like it kind of almost exactly matches up with the character. Perfect. And then let's add a rigid body 2D. And let's get rid of, let's see, mass will be very, very, very small. And gravity will be, oh, actually, you know what? With this guy, we want gravity to be huge. We want a lot of gravity. So let's see. Let's do like maybe 180. Lots of gravity. Big gravity. Let's see. What else do we need to do? I guess we could do... That's going to be too much. Let's do 150. Let's do 150. All right. And then here for collision detection, we can do continuous. And let's do interpolation. Basically, it's just sets a more smooth frame rate checking for collision detection, and this continuous sets it so that it's always looking for something instead of just waiting for a contingent. It doesn't really matter. We can just set it to whatever. Now that I think about it, this character doesn't really need continuous detection, but whatever. Whatever works for us later. All right, and the last thing I need to add to this player is the script that we created. And again, I told you we're only really going to have one script for this entire project. Hello. We're only going to have one script for this come on. I'll just go ahead and add it to the player like that. How about that? We only need one script for the project, so we're just going to add it to the player because the player is going to be in the game from the very beginning, so we don't need to worry about adding it to anything else. All right, so the player is now ready to go. Let's make a prefab out of him. Let's just drop him in. Hello. Just drop him into the prefabs full. What? Why am I not able to? That's weird. I can't drop him into my. Hello. This is strange. I've never seen that before. It's not letting me drag things into the menu. What did I do? I think I might have broken it, you guys. I broke it. I've really never seen that before. Okay, well, we'll worry about making a prefab later, I guess. All right. The last thing we need to build, I need to set this, is our spikes. Our spikes are going to be the main bad guy in this game. It's going to be the thing that causes us heartache, causes us to lose. I'm going to set that to 16 pixels per unit. I'm going to set the filter to point, and it's a single solitary sprite, so I don't need to worry about splicing it up or anything. I'm going to hit apply, drop that guy in our game. And the one thing we need on this is a 2D box collider. We don't need anything fancy there. Doesn't need a rigid body. And I'm going to make this, I'm going to set the box collider a little bit shorter. Yeah, make it like right there. Now we have that. Hopefully this will work for prefabs. Hopefully now I can drop my prefab into, oh gosh. Okay. This is strange. Alrighty. That's weird that I can't drag things in and out of the game. Anyway, so this is, we've covered a lot. We've covered animations. We have our game, objects essentially set up. Hopefully you guys aren't having problems with prefabs. What you're going to want to see is, actually there's one more that we need to make. Oh well, whatever. What you're gonna want is a prefab for the checkpoints, a prefab for your character, and a prefab for your spikes. So try to get all those prefabs in there. I'm gonna cut this video now, and then I'm gonna troubleshoot, see what's going on with my Unity. I'm gonna make my prefabs, and then in the next video, we're gonna actually set up this level, and we're gonna start doing some of the programming to make this level run. So I will see you in the next video. Thank you for paying attention. See you later.